Groove Shack Records.
Okay, welcome to the second episode of the Groove Shack podcast, where I speak to artists about their journey through music. Today I have with me a very special guest who has a single called Weekend Waiting coming out on Groove Shack Records on Friday the 6th of September. He is a multi-award winning music producer, DJ, author and filmmaker. So it is none other, welcome to the podcast, Rory Hoy. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good, thank you.
Oh, it's great to speak to you, So, I mean, a man of all traits, a man of all hats, you do so much. Going right back to the start, like, what was your first memory of music?
It's actually a second-hand memory, but it's thanks to an old VHS tape.
Great.
I think the very first tune I ever heard was in the incubator in hospital, and it was "Got My Mind Set on You" by George Harrison.
Got my mind set on
That's the one. My actual earliest musical memory, I have absolutely no idea what it was. But the very first record I ever bought was "Boom Shake the Room" by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
That is a tune.
I played it at a business awards thing last week, and people just love it to bits. And because my mum and dad are both professional performers, and they were always on stage every night while mum was pregnant with me, I guess I heard all sorts of music in the room.
Oh, fantastic!
When I was a child, there was always music playing.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It's just bring this up because I never realised when I was a child that my mum and dad were professional musicians. I always thought it was some sort of hobby. It was only until I was about 10 or so when I realised they were professional.
That's fantastic. So, speaking about them, like, what's can you tell me a bit about what they did, like how they influenced you?
Of course, my dad is from Mulgai, which is near Glasgow, and he was actually quite famous in the 1970s. He was in a group called Magna Carta, and they were quite big back in the day. He had a top 10 in the Netherlands, and he used to play in like 10,000 capacity arenas in Spain. And He had a gold record for one of his albums, which was Prisoners on the Line. And his previous group, which was the Natural Acoustic Band, were on the Old Grey Whistle test with Whispering Bob Harris, and he played with Don McLean at the Royal Albert Hall.
That's fantastic.
And my mum is also a singer too. And in the 80s, my mum and dad used to tour all over the world. But I have to admit, their music tastes don't really reflect my own, as dad is a folk rock type person, and then he just tolerates what I do. And we still have arguments to this day on whether turntables are real musical instruments or not. And though saying that, I have collaborated with them a few times, and
really,
they're fun to work with.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In fact, my mum has sung some of my songs, and dad has played guitar. In fact, my dad did a song a few years ago for the Tour de France, and dad did this sort of rocky guitar solo on it, and it got used on a TV program about the Tour de France.
That's amazing. That's honestly amazing. See, when you were like, when did you first start writing and producing music? And I know obviously you DJ as well. Did that come first, or was the music writing first?
Oh, I started doing the music a very, very long time ago. It was probably around 2005 to be exact, because originally I was destined to be a filmmaker. I had a little bit of success. One of my short films was a comedy sketch pilot called The Timmy Tools Tribute Show. It was actually shown on the Graveyard slot on BBC Two.
Yeah.
And I even edited an episode of Emmerdale. And I had some quite big success with a film of mine called Autism and Me, which you can still get on DVD. And it came with a booklet, and I talked about what it was like living with autism on a day-to-day basis. And I'm still really proud of it. And I got quite a few awards from it. I even got one from Guy Ritchie, and it was quite amazing.
Now that's saying something. That's huge.
That was in 2006. I got that award, and it was I travelled to Belfast in this quite famous venue.
So 2005 when you started that, how old would you have been then?
You wouldn't believe this, but I was only about 18 at the time, and originally it started December 2005. That was when I started doing the music seriously, and it was originally just going to be a side career to my filmmaking work.
Yeah.
I thought naturally being a music producer would be a wise career move, because even though I enjoyed doing I was quite competent making sort of like documentary films and music videos, I wasn't particularly good at doing sort of fiction as a during with the filmmaking.
Yeah.
And with the music producing, it's just like doing the editing side of the films, except you don't have to think about narrative, you don't have to think about the visual element. So it's like taking 1/3 of the element out, and it's just and it started then, and then in 2006 I became a DJ, and I've got to give a big shout out to Jim Bluefoot, who was my DJ tutor, and then it was around 2007 when I started to put some of my tunes up on MySpace, which is really showing my age now.
Yeah, I remember MySpace.
And then I sent one of my tunes to a really quite a big American DJ called Freddie Fresh, who I idolize, and he's absolutely awesome.
Absolutely.
And I sent him some stuff, and he absolutely loved what I did, and it resulted in my very first album, which was Cosmic Child, which came out in 2008, and I think it still sounds pretty good to this day. It's more sort of trip hoppy. It's more sort of trip hop, instrumental hip hop kind of stuff. But
fantastic.
I feel like I've been through quite a journey as a producer and a DJ, but I still feel like the best days are yet to come.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of it. You know what I mean? And when I go through your like back catalogue and stuff, there's so much that's different. You've got some big beat stuff, some more funky stuff, and there's just such an eclectic. Like bunch, collection.
I like to be diverse as a producer, as a DJ. I don't like to just
stay one style. Yeah, of course.
One mono style of music, because I've done in the past sort of few days. I'm working on a house tune at the moment. I'm working on a techno song, and I'm even doing a punk song at the moment.
Great.
I've done all kinds of music. I've done rock stuff. I've done pop stuff. I've done hip hop. I've dabbled in drum and bass and dubstep briefly. I've just done practically everything, and I just love being eclectic. And that's when I was learning about the big beat era. A lot of the DJs from that time period were very diverse. They wouldn't just stick to playing music with big break beats. They would sometimes play a bit of jungle. They would play.
Yeah, you never knew what was coming next. Yes. I love that.
And even when I DJ, I like to stick to that really, because I love because a lot of when I go and see other DJs, when I see other DJs go on before or after me, they often just play like one type of music. But I like to surprise people, because sometimes you might go into, you might play like a fairly, because sometimes I like to start the music, my sets off fairly commercial, accessible. I might play something mainstreamy like Dua Lipa, but at the end of the night it might be all sort of underground techno.
Fantastic. But I always love that when it comes to DJ sets, that the crowd doesn't know what to expect next, and it kind of catches them off guard. I love that sort of stuff. I see as well you're doing a lot of gigs over the festival season. Is there a gig that you've played at that really, really stands out?
The summer months are my absolute favourite time of the year, and especially now as it's the peak of festival season. I just love going to places, and my sort of thing is to make people happy and just to get them from this to doing like that.
Absolutely.
I like to make people. My mission statement is to make as many people happy as humanly possible. I think there's just too many gigs to highlight, but I think they've all been good. I don't know which would be my absolute favourite gig ever, but the biggest one was Tour de France, which was a few years back, and I played to about 20,000 people, which was quite amazing.
Wow, how did that feel?
It was pretty good. It was in the afternoon, but it was still pretty rocking. Yeah. But I think maybe my favourite gig, maybe it's just because it's fresh in my mind, was probably a Deershed Festival.
Yeah, it was quite recently.
And I did it back at the end of July, and it was a fantastic gig. The tent was like a few hundred capacity tent, and it was completely rammed, and there were actually people queuing to see me.
That's brilliant.
And it was just, and I did a 3-hour set, and I was just so energetic, and I just. You can actually listen to the set on Mixcloud if you want to.
Oh, fantastic! I'll definitely get onto that, and I'll link it in the description below.
And it was just such an amazing gig that and every time I've done shows with Craig Charles, it's been a lot of fun, because he's a friend of mine, and one of the shows,
absolute legend as well.
Oh, he's a lovely chap. I've known him for quite a bit now, and we used to do the shows at the O2 ABC in Glasgow, which sadly isn't around anymore. And
I've seen that.
And I've done quite a few shows there, and I've DJed in Scotland a few times, and I just love the Scottish crowds. They're just
lively.
So and they often chant, "Here we, and go all the tunes. I just love that. It just helps motivate me. There's a similar chant that happens in my English gigs, because every time I DJ in this place called Hubie, which is near York, there's a thing they got called Drumfest, and they chant, "Rory, Rory, Rory, Big Hoy."
Brilliant. Love it. So obviously Craig Charles, Fatboy Slim as well. Who's your like biggest influences? Would you say?
I think my two biggest ones would have to be Freddie Fresh and Fatboy Slim. And
Yeah.
Freddie Fresh, not just because he discovered me, but because he's a really good producer and DJ. I just love what he does. I sort of lovingly plagiarize his style in some ways. Of course, Fatboy Slim. Need I say any more?
Yeah,
and I think other big influences I would say would be people like the Chemical Brothers, the Prodigy, Daft Punk, Armand Van Helden, Mr. Scruff, the Wise Guys,
the Wise Guys as well. I forgot about those.
I actually I want to give a shout out to DJ Regal, who I once knew, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago, and he was a massive influence on me. And same with Theo, who's now Fake Blood, and he's a really fantastic DJ and producer as well. But I've met quite a few of my heroes, including Fatboy Slim, who I've met a couple of times, and he's a really, really nice chap.
He seems to be quite genuine, He
is. The thing I like about Norman is he's just so unpretentious, and he's quite normal as well. He's not sort of showbiz. He's just a nice, normal guy. He might be way up there, but he's just one of us. And the great thing is he's just so, and it's just amazing because every time I hear one of his DJ mixes and he drops one of my songs, I'm like,
oh no, totally. That's like what a feeling, eh? Especially
I'm going to send him Weekend Waiting, obviously.
Oh, good, of course. Brilliant. So obviously you've produced all these different styles of music. Is there any in particular that is like so much more fun than the others, or is it all really just fun in itself?
I don't know really, but the one that I mentioned this quite a bit. The one I enjoy producing a lot is Big Beat, just because the thing that not many people do Big Beat at the moment, which is a shame.
That's a shame.
But I just love the anything goes nature of Big Beat, because there's no real rules to it other than the break beats have to be big, because you can make funky Big Beat, you can make poppy Big Beat, you can make rocky Big Beat, and
as long as the beats are kind of in your face.
That's basically it. That's because it's not so homogenized. But I also really enjoy doing sort of Daft Punky style house, like take like a disco loop and sort of filter it and just sort of And also at the moment I'm making a lot of techno stuff at the moment. I'm going through a bit of a techno phase at the moment. I don't know why. I just seem to like techno tunes that are like, I'm not sure how to describe it really. We're sort of like rave synths and
because there's a lot of that coming back now. It's like reminiscent of the 90s.
Because I'm really into the stuff that's on Bush Records at the moment.
Which is a really good label.
On Bush Records last year, and there was one tune that Eric Powell, who runs Bush Records, did a few years ago, which probably got me into producing techno a bit more, called "Very Chic Black Man." It was the Horatio remix. I just love that song.
Oh, brilliant! So when you're producing, is there any favourite instruments, VSTs, effects, or stuff that you really love, or is it just?
Not sure really, but there's one instrument I really like, and that's the Hammond organ. I don't know why that is, but I seem to like stuff with Hammond organs in, and I just like sort of funk guitars as well. Like, I don't know really, I like stuff with horn sections, and I also like sort of Jimi Hendrix style guitars. I don't really have like a favourite instrument really, and I also like to do turntable scratches. As I've told you before we record this, I do a bit of scratching in my tunes as well.
So did you teach yourself to scratch, or?
No. DJ. I got tuition from a guy called Jim Bluefoot, and he taught me how to DJ back in 2007, and we did it. The tuition lasted for about 18 months, and he's a lovely chap, and he's based in Leeds, and I still keep in touch with him from time to time, and it's just I don't know. I've lost track now.
It's okay, but big shout out to him. So when you're producing a track, what's your creative process? Do you start with a melody or a loop, or what do you go for, or is it times? Does it change?
I liken my creative process to a person making a scrapbook. I create and I find disparate parts, and I hope they all stick together. If they do, magic happens. I'm very fortunate that I have perfect pitch, so I seem to instinctively know where to play certain sounds and instruments, etc. Okay. I think the creative process is quite different every time, because I don't always. Sometimes it takes only about a few minutes to make a song, and other times I take years to to work on one song. It depends really. It's different, especially when I collaborate with other people, and I have to sort of work with their idiosyncrasies and see how I can sort of fit in.
Oh, perfect. So you're also an author of 5 books: Autism and Me, The Little Big Beat Book, The Story of Big Beat, The Beatles, All You Need Is Help, and The Beatles Acting Naturally, which is truly inspiring. When did you get into writing, and what made you so passionate about Big Beat and The Beatles?
The writing is a bit of a sideline, but it's been quite successful, which I'm really pleased with. The reason for making the Little Big Beat book was because I felt that the Big Beat era was unfairly scrubbed out of history, and there was very few bits of accurate information about the genre online. So I was blessed to interview so many amazing people, which I think was about over 120 from the era, including Keith Flint from The Prodigy, which I think might have been his last ever interview. And I'm glad I did it the book at the correct time, because not just because of his passing, but because I mentioned DJ Regal from the Wise Guys, who unfortunately died a few months ago as well. And it's just I just feel like it's really raised the profile of myself, and also with I've gave the Big Beat scene a bit more kudos, and also with the 2 Beatles books. The reason why I did those was during a time of uncertainty in my music career, as I wrote those 2 books during the height of the pandemic years,
right.
And I wasn't sure when I would start DJ again, so I decided to write a book about the Beatles, because I've been a massive fan of the Beatles since I was basically 0, and because my dad is a massive Beatles fan. And funny enough, that both books have been really well received, and they've both been featured in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame library in America, which is quite amazing.
Wow, go you! That's amazing.
I'm sorry to shamelessly name drop somebody, but there's one person
Go for it.
Who from Beatles Radio who I have met, and he was the nicest possible guy you could wish to meet, and that was Paul McCartney.
Fantastic.
I was invited to meet him because of my autism work, and also because of my music. And I got to meet him at the Hydro in Glasgow. It was back in 2018.
Yeah.
And he was the sweetest, nicest possible person. In fact, once the interview is over, I'll show you the photograph. I can't show it to you now because Paul McCartney's photographers own the copyright to it. But as soon as the camera's off, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, perfect. So, Weekend Waiting by Rory Hoy is coming out on all platforms Friday the 6th of September, so mark your calendars. Do you have any other releases that you'd like to mention, or any gigs coming up that you'd like to mention?
If you want to look up the gigs, just look on socials and just look at my official website. But when it comes to upcoming releases, obviously Weekend Waiting, which is my 100th or so throwback to late 90s, early noughties funky house. Think Fatboy Slim on Brighton Beach back in the day. I want to give a shout out to your fantastic remix, which I really enjoyed, and also Darren Purves remix as well, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Because the thing is, I don't normally listen to trance music, but I think that's really good.
Yeah, it kind of like echoes the sound of like the late 90s trance to like early noughties, and I love that. That was kind of for me the sweet spot of trance, because I was a trance head back in the day. I still love my trance, but I'm like you. I love so many different types of music, you know. That's
what I like to hear.
Yeah.
So when it comes to other releases, I've got to give. I've also got part 2 of my collaboration album with Severe, who are a Milton Keynes-based electro punk band. It's called Orbital Rocktronics Part 2, and it's coming out, I think, around November time. And I also have a new single coming out with a singer friend of mine called Keziah, called Give Me the Record. And I'm also doing a very exciting collaboration with a very famous US R&B legend, which I'll tell you about after the cameras are off.
Yeah.
And also, I'm also doing some music for some high-end fashion brands, and I've also done a remix for BB King, which is getting quite a bit of airplay on BBC Six Music on Craig Charles's show. There's always lots happening for me, and hopefully more in the future.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. For the listeners and watchers, we're going to put a little preview of the original and the remixes so you could hear it before it's released. And yeah, thank you very much for chatting to me, Rory. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.